Warhammer 40,000 is an incredible experience. You're going to go to a tournament and you're going to have, let's say, 5 amazing games, but occasionally you're going to have 4 amazing games, and you're going to have one game where you run into that guy. 4 of them, awesome, great games, good vibes. And then you found the player that you already don't like. The guy you've played before and you're quietly dreading. Maybe he's a known cheater. Maybe he's just a little bit rude, or a lot of it rude. Maybe they're not even just a bad person at all. It's just like 2 personalities that just don't click. Listen, I'm a grown man. Some people don't like me. You're a grown man, presumably. Most people don't like you. Some people, maybe 0.001% of this channel, are grown women, and some people might not like them. And that is okay. There are personality clashes. But listen, sometimes it's not even personality clash. You just have a person who's just painfully boring to play against. And there's a big problem with that when it comes to Warhammer 40,000. If you let that person or that game ruin your enjoyment, they've just stolen something from you that really, really actually matters, and that's your hobby. So this video is really not about etiquette, and it's not about being nice, and it's definitely not about pretending that absolutely everyone out there is your friend, because they're not. This is about controlling yourself, and this video, it's about how to handle interpersonal relationships on the table. But trust me, when you learn how to control yourself, this is going to directly influence how good you are at Warhammer 40,000. So stick in, because you can't control who you're paired into, but you can control your mindset. You can control your emotional state and how much power you hand across the table. This is important in strategy as well as communication. So today I'm going to walk you through the different types of players that are going to be creating bad experiences. There's 5 of them, mind you. And more importantly, how to deal with each one of these players without losing focus, without losing your cool, without falling out of love of the game. If you play Warhammer long enough, this really isn't optional. This is a skill, and we're going to build it. And this isn't only for tournament players either. There are people in your gaming group that are going to fit these profiles, and you're going to come across them. So we are going to build this skill now, all right? Now, before we talk about the types of players, we need to lock in one really important core rule here, because if you miss this, none of the rest of this video is going to work or going to help you at all. You cannot control the other player. You can't control their attitude, you cannot control their personality, and you can't control whether they're fun, boring, rude, insufferable, but you can control 3 things, and these 3 things determine whether you are going to enjoy the game or whether you're going to hate it. So first off, the thing that you can control is going to be your language, and these are the words that you use in your head that matter a lot more than you think. If you tell yourself, oh, this guy ruins the tournament, well, you've already given them a lot of power to ruin your freaking tournament. But if instead you say, so this is a situation I need a better strategy for, well, you've taken the power of enjoying your hobby back. So second, your emotional state. Most bad games are not lost on the table. They're actually lost internally inside your own head. Going on tilt, which I've been guilty of before. Getting frustrated, which I've been guilty of before. Getting annoyed, I've been guilty of that before. Those don't just feel bad. They're actually going to make you a sloppy player. They're going to make you impatient, and they're going to make you really predictable on the table. So this isn't even about communicating and having a better experience with players. It's also about having a better experience, getting better at the game, which is what we're all freaking here for. So your goal is not really just to feel good. Your goal is to stay centered. Calm is not weakness. Calm is control. And then lastly, the third principle that we got to understand, and then I promise we're going to get into the types of players here. You got to control your standards. You don't lower your standards because someone else is just being unpleasant. You raise your standards. You play cleaner. You communicate more clearly, and you stay more disciplined. Do what Jocko says. Because the moment you let someone else's behavior dictate how you show up, you've stopped playing Warhammer, and you've started reacting. So here's the rules for the rest of this video. Every difficult opponent is not a social problem. They're just a self-mastery test. And once you see it this way, these situations are going to stop being training, and they're going to start becoming training. Now, let's talk about the first type of player. So the first type of player, everybody, the known cheater. Oh my goodness. Especially in recent times when social media has become more and more popular, we have recognized that there are certain people out there who are known cheaters. Whether it's your personal club that you play at, whether it's one of the FLG events that have, allowed people had lifetime bans to re-register for some reason. This is going to cause some problems for, certain people. So the psychological trap that you're going to have is you're going to have pre-tilt. You're going to be like, oh gosh, this is going to be a horrible experience. But you don't actually know that. So what we're going to do is we're going to reframe. We are going to reframe, oh no, this is going to be a horrible event, to, oh, this is a game where I'm just going to make sure I set very clear boundaries. Because what you might find is that many times in this hobby, people who are known cheaters recognize the error of their ways, and they've come back as just incredibly wonderful opponents. So if you guys know the name TJ Lanigan famously got caught cheating on stream, and he actually stopped playing for about a year and a half. But now he's back in the game, and he is pretty much everyone's favorite opponent who ever plays him, because he just realized that he was kind of being uh, earplugs for if you got young ones around. He realized he was being shitty, and he's come back, and he is just absolutely awesome. And every single player who plays him just gives nothing but the craziest, amazing reviews of how gracious and kind and loving a player that an opponent he is, and he's incredibly good at the game as well. So he saw the error of his ways, and he's come back. He's become a very, very strong and incredible person to play against. So this happens actually quite often. So what I want you to do is I want you to reframe your mindset when you're going into the known cheater. We're not going to start thinking, oh, this is going to be a horrible game. I'm going to have to watch him like a hawk every single second. No, we're just going to reframe it for boundaries. And our strategy for this is that we're going to play maybe a little bit more slowly. If they are talking about a rule that sounds a little fishy, just ask for clarity. Just ask to see the rule. And if you ever do need to escalate, you just escalate calmly. And what I mean by escalation is, hey, listen, you read that rule incorrectly. I need you to be more clear about what you're doing on the table. Hey, listen, I believe you moved 7.5 inches when you move your model across the board instead of 6. Here is a 6-inch measuring stick. Just use that from now on, please. And if there are ever any issues, you allow the judge to handle them. You call a judge of it. You never let it become an issue for you. But if you go into the game correctly, knowing how to set your boundaries, you're never going to have an issue with an opponent really cheating, to be honest with you. It's just not going to happen. Of course, this would require you to know that they are no cheater. All right, let's go on to the second type of player. The rude or the aggressive player. The Erebus, if you will. No longer sneaky gets we're talking about. We're talking about freaking Erebus, and everyone hates Erebus. Now, I have played this player. You have played this player. It is a fact of life. Sometimes this person pops up, whether it's at a tournament or just a local gaming club. Here's the psychological trap that you're going to fall for, and that is going to be matching energy. Do not mirror their energy. You don't need to feel the need to win the interaction. If someone is being rude or disrespectful to you, you do not need to be rude and disrespectful to them back. In what way does that serve you? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to transform our framing of what we want to do. We naturally want to match people's energy. We do this in life. We do this in business. It messes up with us everywhere. But rudeness is often just emotional insecurity. So your calm will actually become psychological dominance upon the board. So the practical strategy for dealing with this is I just want you to slow things down. Lower your voice, reduce the speed, never match your opponent's tone, and the key internal mantra is I don't need their approval to enjoy my game. This is the game that I love. I'm not going to allow someone who's a little bit rude to deal with it. So your outcome is going to be you're trying to stay centered. They are either going to calm down or they're going to look completely unreasonable to absolutely everyone, and they're going to make a buffoon of themselves. Now, I will say there is another really, really cool thing that you can do with people who are rude and aggressive, because a lot of times people don't actually know it. So I do this, and it's the call out. I'll just put the clock on me when I feel like someone is just being a little too much. And this happens. Sometimes people do that. And I say, hey, listen, I don't know what's going on, but this is how your energy is coming off to me. You're coming off like a little freaking much right now. The words you just used was uncalled for. Would you please mind reining it in a little bit? We're just here having a fun time playing a game. Honestly, most people don't know that they're acting out when they're acting out. And I have found that 80% of the time, if I just let someone know that they're being rude, and I would appreciate it if they stop, that's not me calling them an asshole. I'm not calling them all these bad words. I just say, hey, listen, that was uncalled for. That was rude. Could you please stop doing that? Almost all of the time, the person immediately stops it and they apologize because they're not intentionally going that way. Maybe they just had a bad breakfast. Maybe they had a bad experience in their last match. Maybe they're just having a bad day. You don't know. Whenever people are being rude and aggressive at our hobby, it's almost always unintentional, and it's always due to something else. So a lot of times I'll just let them know that they're doing it, and they tend to cut it out. All right, let's talk about the next type of player, the third personality. And this is the personality clash. Now, this is one that I have absolutely fallen victim to, and I handled very poorly. So I'm going to share some experiential knowledge with you on this one. So here's the psychological trap, okay? You and your opponent have just different styles, different values. You pace at different ways. You communicate differently. Actually, a lot of times this will happen when you play an opponent who's speaking your language as a second language. So whether you're at the WTC and you're both two people are speaking English, but your opponent, their second language is German, and the translation, they'll say things in ways that we wouldn't say it if you're an American or if you're English. You would say you wouldn't phrase it that way, and it can come off as rude, but they have no intention of it being rude. It's just they do like a direct translation, right? So this will happen all the time, and I absolutely fell victim to this at one of my tournaments this past year, and I actually did a video on it, and I completely didn't handle it the right way, and it just became a horribly toxic experience for both of us. And he was not, and I don't think he was actually intentionally being a jerk. He was being a jerk. Well, afterwards, when we both got into a fight, he was, but I was as well, right? It wasn't just him; it was my fault as well. But because I didn't recognize the fact that it was just a personality conflict and it wasn't him actually intending to be a jerk, it really led to something that it really shouldn't have been. So we're going to reframe this. We're not going to label this opponent as bad to play against. We're not going to personalize incompatibility between the two of us. We're just going to do this. Not every mismatch is a failure. Some people are just have a different operating systems, okay? So here's the strategy. We're going to just adjust our expectations for the game, not behavior, right? So we're not going to match perceived energy. We're not going to do any of this thing. We're not going to say this game sucks. We're going to say that this game is a game about reps and discipline. How do I say disciplined on the table when I am getting frustrated? So how do I rechannel my energy? This is going to become a much more effective strategy for you learning how to get better at the game. Hey, I'm not enjoying my time with this person, but that doesn't mean that they're a bad person. Maybe they just come off as a little too sarcastic. Maybe, and I've seen this, man, I've seen very serious players who hate playing with players who joke around a lot. I have played games against people who look at me at the start of the table and they say, hey, listen, I do not want to talk while we play the game. If it's about the game, absolutely. But if there's any banter, I don't want any of it. I just want to play the game. Which I found immensely boring and I did not like. But I appreciated them telling me what their expectations were for the game. And so what I did is I just reframed it. I was like, okay, so this is not a game where I'm going to make a new friend. This is a game where we are going to work on technical aspects of the game. And then afterwards, we went and grabbed a beer, and it was great. But I realized I don't want to play with that opponent again, but doesn't mean that they're a bad person. So just keep that in mind. Just because you're not getting along with someone doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that you guys don't necessarily have the greatest personality matches. Just because you don't want to be best friends with someone doesn't mean that they're a bad person, okay? So keep that freaking in mind when you play Warhammer. All right, we got two more personality types that are going to be kind of issues. Next one is going to be the boring player, and then I'll finish off with the last one, who we've all played. So the boring player, this is the person who just... man, you don't get their humor. They're slow. They're doing everything by the book. And it's just like they're not engaging with you. And you are just bored to tears. So the psychological trap for this one is disengagement. But we got to reframe the psychological trap. We got to say, hey, I'm not trying to disengage. I want to stay engaged. And this is a solo performance test. Now, what do I mean by that when I say this is a solo performance test? The game becomes about your standards for the game. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to reframe your brain, and I want you to start setting personal challenges for yourself. You're going to go for perfect movement. You're going to go for clean sequencing. You're going to go for 0 missed triggers. You're never going to ask for a take back here. So I just want you to treat this type of a game against this type of an opponent like a practice match under tournament pressure. So the win condition for you now is going to become leave sharper than you arrived. And yeah, sometimes the person's just going to be boring, and that's going to be a-okay. All right, then lastly, we have the rules lawyer. Now, this one, I actually, personally, I have been this guy before, right? just you know, I have actually been this guy. And I have actually been able to, I can approach this one from a different perspective. Okay, so this is the person who, how do I phrase this? There's going to be constant nitpicking. There's going to be a slow pace. There's going to be mental exhaustion you're going to be feeling. Like, you're going to feel like your opponent is attacking you. And you're just getting dragged into endless micro conflicts. So we have to understand that this person isn't being aggressive. This person is just really into the rules of that game. And precision is their comfort zone. So at this point, pace becomes your leverage. So the way that you handle people who are going to be rules lawyers, and I've learned this just in dealing with people with myself, right? Just immediately early on in the game, agree on expectations super early. Let's keep things moving. So if I'm going to be playing with an opponent, one of my things that I'm really nitpicky about is movement. I do not ever want to see someone moving 7.5 inches when you have a 6-inch movement. this is not people intentionally cheating. This is not people intentionally being rude. This is just something that tends to happen on the tabletop. People take their tape measure and they hold it like this, and they just move a little further than they're supposed to, and they're not even doing it intentionally. It's just something that happens. So for me, the way that I've solved, so I'm no longer a sweaty, nerdy guy with the rules lawyering. I actually bring measuring sticks with me to the tabletop, and I just put them on the table. I say, hey, if you're going to do your pilings and consolidates, would you just use this 3-inch widget I have? That just makes it way easier for both of us. Makes life really, really easy. We don't get into the nitpicky, all these things. So when you're dealing with a rules lawyer, I would recommend that you ask them what is their thing, like what's the thing that they're really, really focused on, so that you can kind of honestly just use that as an opportunity to build a greater skill and use their knowledge base, because they probably have an incredible knowledge base, which is going to be helpful for you to develop as a player. So agree on strategy, ask for the rulings once, and then you just move on. And then don't debate. Like if they're arguing something and you just don't think they're right, don't argue with them. You just delegate to a judge. You just call a judge. No problem. Hey, listen, we disagree on whether this is a 3-inch charge or a 2.9-inch charge. I'm just going to call a judge and let them decide it. That way that there's no problems and you don't have to worry about anything. At that point, you can actually have incredible games with rules lawyers, and you're going to have a lot of fun with them, as long as you just realize that precision is their comfort zone, and it might not be yours, and that's okay. All right. So guys, that's it. So basically, here's the deal. I'm going to give you 3 rules for tabletop peace here. You got to protect your emotional state. You got to redefine winning, and you got to leave better than you arrived. I really, really want you guys to start learning how to master yourself across the freaking table. Your emotional state is always going to determine your experience, whether it's in Warhammer, whether it's in life, whether it's in business. It doesn't matter. When we redefine winning, what this means is that winning's not just points on the table. Winning is control, composure, enjoyment, and growth. The reality is that currently in Warhammer 40,000, you're not making a living playing this game. Even I'm not making a living playing this game. I'm making a living making YouTube videos about this game, and then I have a business expense when I go to tournaments, right? So you're not making your life living off of this. So you really should be enjoying yourself at these tournaments. So sometimes you just got to be like, hey, listen, this is a personality type. How do I protect my enjoyment of the game? And then rule number 3, I want you to always leave better than you arrived. If you learn something, you've won. If you've stayed calm, you've won. If you still love the hobby afterwards, you've really, really won. If there are ever severe conflicts, you call a judge, you let the judge handle it. You should never be fighting with your opponents. That's something I've definitely learned, because I have fought with opponents before, and I am completely over that. I am much more interested in enjoying myself while I'm going to go play the game that I love. So here's it. What I want you guys to answer in the comments down below. What player type triggers you the most? There are some out there. For me, it's the rude player. I do not handle rude well, and it's something that I have to really actively control to keep myself calm in those situations. I want you to reframe tournaments. These things are not just skill tests. They're actually character tests for you as men and who are developing. And then lastly, mastering Warhammer is not just about dice and data sheets. It's about mastering yourself across the table. If you guys like this content, like, share, subscribe, do all those things. You can sign up for coaching using the link down below, and you can join the Discord as another way to support the channel, where you can join the most friendly and loving and skilled freaking Warhammer community on the internet. So I guess that's it. Crump on. Bye-bye.